Welcome back. Hopefully at this point you've taken a few Bigfoot bites, chewed on them a little bit, let them marinate, and you're finally starting to realize that Bigfoot is actually real. But for those of you who aren't convinced yet, I say that you're still just nibbling. So let's take some bigger bites, shall we? So in my previous initial episodes, I really wanted to share with everybody my own personal encounter stories and all of the details of those days and what I think led up to my encounters and what led up to me getting reactions from Sasquatch. But I also really wanted to share with everyone some of the beginning basic knowledge of Bigfoot. Because let's face it, you can't dive into the deeper theories without at least having a first initial basis to start from. So even though I'm very open-minded and I do have a lot of discussions with many people about these supernatural theories or extraterrestrial theories or interdimensional theories and whatnot, I would like to try at first to explain to everybody why this is so real and why it needs to be taken seriously. Because if we start there, then people are more inclined to later on dive into their own theories and go a little deeper and a little bit further. But I have noticed that if you go straight into those deep, crazy theories, you're just going to lose a lot of people's attention. You're going to continue the narrative that Sasquatch is a myth, it's folklore, people are just insane and having like mental breakdowns and just like making these, make-believe monsters in the forest seem real. And believe me, I totally get it. I understand why so many people just think this is fake, but that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you take off little chunks, little pieces, start from scratch, start from the beginning, understand just how real and visceral and honestly quite simple this whole concept is, so that then you can start to build off of that. So if you listened to my previous episodes, you'd know that I started to break down the fundamentals of nature that a lot of people were overlooking. And one of those just simply being camouflage, that every single animal in the wild, whether predator or prey, uses camouflage for survival. I also briefly mentioned how not only are they masters of camouflage and difficult to see with the naked eye, but that it's just so extremely difficult to film them or even get a photograph. So let's dive into that a little bit more, because this has a lot behind it that I think many, many people have not thought about. The world of wildlife photography is absolutely crazy. Do any of you know a real deal wildlife photographer? Raise your hand if you know somebody who's worked for National Geographic. I bet you there's only a few of you who've ever known anybody who actually does it. And if you do, you'd know that they go through the ringer. Not only is it extremely expensive, because you have to think, you got to fly out to the location, you have to be able to miss work, or you have to be able to have enough money saved to be able to go out to this location for maybe even months at a time. You have to have the equipment, which costs thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, I could go on and on and on about how much these endeavors cost. So let's say that you have all that. You have all the equipment, you have the means to take time off of work, or you're not working right now. You're able to go out on location. You have the scent blockers, the ghillie suits, the tent, the setup. You have everything you need. I'm going to just take a total ballpark guess and say that you're going to put in about $10,000 into this project, which isn't a lot when you look at how much these photographers make, for getting those incredible shots, right? They're paid a lot of money, and rightfully so. But let's just say ballpark, you have an extra 10 grand laying around so that you can go out and go do this. Once you get out there, what do you do? What do you do? You have no idea what to do. You might know what to do if you're filming birds. You might know what to do if you're filming mountain lion. You'd probably know what to do if you're looking for raccoons to film, or fox, or wolves, or any other animal that isn't so frickin' elusive and that you already know their patterns, their behaviors. You already know how to track them down, all of those things. Let's say that you get out there and you're like, oh, okay, I've got a great know-how with wildlife. You don't know a thing about Bigfoot. And let me just make a little side note here that I personally believe, I strongly believe, that one of the only advantages, there's a couple advantages that Sasquatch have over us as human beings, but one of the only advantages that they have is that they have observed us and our behavior far more than we have observed them and their behavior. That's one of the only leg ups they have on us. They know how to avoid us. They know how we behave, we act, what we carry, the weapons we display and brandish, how we interact with other animals in the forest, because they've been observing us easily for quite a long time, whereas we've not been able to observe them. No one who is alive currently has ever observed Sasquatch in their natural habitat with their daily behaviors. Eating, drinking, going to the bathroom, mating, just regular everyday behaviors. Not a single person alive has been able to regularly observe it. The only time that we are able to observe Sasquatch and their behaviors is when they allow it. Or in most cases, when it's just plain accidental. Either way, Sasquatch are not allowing human beings to regularly and frequently observe their most intimate behaviors. So with that being said, again, I want to remind everybody that even if you do have the 10 grand, even if you are a wildlife photographer with all of the equipment and knowledge of everything that you could possibly need, you'll still go out there and be clueless. You don't know how to track them down. You don't know how to locate them. You don't know what areas they're in. You don't know anything about their migratory patterns or their mating habits. You don't know where their territory lies. So what do? You gotta put together a crew. If this is ever going to be done in our lifetime, it must be done with a highly specialized, trained and educated in wildlife survival, tracking, all of it, you name it, anything having to do with surviving in the wild, we would need a highly trained team put together to get this done. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking hunters. Why didn't she mention hunters? Hey, guess what? It's illegal to hunt Sasquatch, so get that out of your head. Yes, we can have hunters on the crew because their know-how will be very important, but get it out of your head that you're ever going to hunt and kill a Sasquatch. Not only is it illegal, and not only in certain counties can you be charged with murder, yes, they actually passed that law, but I'll tell you right now, probably, my opinion would say, that a gunshot wound to a Sasquatch might even just be like a bee sting. And rather than killing the beast like you think you would, you might just actually piss it off. And you might wind up never coming home. I talk to a lot of macho guys online who think that they could hunt Bigfoot down, and I tell them, I warn them with absolute sincerity, if you are ever having a Sasquatch encounter, please Do not ever brandish your firearm or point it at a Sasquatch. Why? Because chances are you're being flanked. And chances are, if they see you as a threat to their life, to one of their family members' lives, and you're being flanked and you don't know it, you're done. You're done. You're just going to end up on a missing persons report. Now, don't get me wrong. There's definitely stories of people who've had an encounter and it got crazy and a little scary and they got spooked. And so they, fired off a warning shot and the Sasquatch just takes off running and, tears through the woods. We've heard stories like this before. And, I understand when you feel threatened, that's what you want to do just because you feel in that moment that you have the power to do that. And it does feel powerful to have the gun and be able to just fire off that shot and scare off whatever it is that's scaring you. But what about the times when you are being flanked? And what about the times when you're dealing with a massive alpha Sasquatch that is 9 feet tall, 700 plus pounds, and you're being flanked by, 2 other females, and you fire off a warning shot, and you've just upset a troop, and there's a little one nearby, and you end up a missing person. That's what I'm trying to explain to people is you need to be careful that you don't end up one of the few that could potentially be happening to. And look, I'm not trying to use scare tactics. I'm just trying to get you to have situational awareness. So what do you do when you're out there completely unarmed and you're just an innocent hiker minding your business and you have a crazy, terrifying Sasquatch encounter? Well, you can learn through me because I've had these situations happen and I've accidentally invited what could have been a very dangerous situation. Now, if you didn't already listen to my episode where I talked about this encounter, I'll just quickly tell you. I had a Sasquatch pound the ground so hard that it made the ground shake beneath our feet and then beat its chest at us. And it definitely, in my opinion, would not have beat its chest at us had I not beat my chest first. That was a dumb mistake. That was just a stupid moment on my part where I was not thinking and I was just absent-mindedly trying to recreate a sound and where I thought I felt it in my body. And so I just thudded on my chest. Okay, so learn through me. Don't go out in the woods and beat your chest at a Sasquatch, okay? This is not a smart maneuver because why? Well, you wouldn't go to the Congo and go up to a wild gorilla and beat your chest at a wild gorilla, would you? No, you would not. Please don't do that. Do not do that. You'll get attacked, okay? Don't do that. Don't be like me. Don't be dumb. I mean, I like to think of myself as a pretty intelligent person, but sometimes I do dumb things. I mean, obviously, I'm human, but I'm just trying to help through my own personal experience to teach people what to do and what not to do. So I hope throughout all of this entire process, not only are you learning a little bit about Sasquatch behavior, but you're learning about what your own behavior should look like. How should you act when you have an encounter where a Sasquatch is pounding the ground at you 30 feet away? Well, take my advice. Don't make any sudden movements. Try not to display anything aggressive, like showing your teeth, beating your chest, stomping back, yelling, screaming, throwing rocks. Anything that could be seen as an aggressive display could be met with a more aggressive display and something that's far more fierce than you could ever imagine. Because even though I made it out unscathed and so did the people I was with, it's not to say that if you're by yourself, that would be the same situation. I don't know how they act when things are different. So just be careful. If you're out hiking by yourself, just be careful. I would not suggest interacting with them when you're by yourself. I think I have a bit more confidence with doing vocalizations back at Sasquatch when I'm with someone or I'm in a vehicle or I'm in like a safe zone. But when it's one-on-one and they're 10, 15, 20 feet away, I do not suggest doing a vocalization at that time because we don't know what their language is yet. We don't know what we're dealing with. We don't know what we could potentially be inviting. And the reason I'm really beating the safety drum, so to speak, here in the first half of this segment is because it is part of the starter pack, the Bigfoot starter pack, because each time you go out on a hike, an expedition, or you're running research, safety has to come first. So in a way here, I'm trying to take you on a linear journey of learning about Bigfoot. But there are many courses that make up this meal, right? These are just the Bigfoot bites. That was just an appetizer. So let's get into the next tidbit. Let's get into the next juicy part of the meal. Let's talk about the Bigfoot community of people. Mainly, I've been diving into Sasquatch themselves, their behaviors, their vocalizations, how you should act during an encounter, and things of that nature, because we're learning. This is the tip of the iceberg. These are the beginnings of Bigfoot 101. And so now I think since we're moving forward and learning more about this whole picture, this entire research community as a whole, we have to talk about these Bigfoot personalities. We got to discuss it. What's going on here? What's going on? It's getting a little weird out there. Things have gotten weird. Let's talk about what's going on. I mean, some of these guys are the main reason why people don't believe in Bigfoot. The foolishness that is being perpetuated over and over, and the constant rhetoric is what's turning people off. People just don't believe in Bigfoot because you guys look hokey pokey ridiculous. You look dumb. You just look dumb, and you're making Bigfoot look dumb, and it's time somebody called you out. How do you expect anybody to believe you when you're out here looking like you're high on drugs in a trailer in the mountains talking about how Bigfoot is telepathically talking to you and your sister? You're making all of us look dumb, buddy. Just sit down. Let the professionals work. Because it seems like some of these passionate hobbyists have turned their projects into schemes and camping trips into con jobs. And then eventually expeditions turn into hoaxes. And the next thing you know, someone who was once an honest researcher, just doing a humble job, is now fooling thousands and thousands of people into believing their lies. Because the harsh reality and the truth of the matter is that Bigfoot research is very boring. You can go years without a peep, without anything, and you're not really going to get a whole lot of views on just filming the trees, now are you? 95% of what we're doing is just driving up and down roads looking for areas that Sasquatch might be making tree breaks, or where there's spots we can tell they've been tracking in and out of locations, which is just a lot of driving and looking and watching. And when we get out and we look for tracks, all we're really doing is walking around and looking. It's quiet, it's peaceful, but it's not too exciting. There's not too much going on. Don't get me wrong, once you have an encounter, it's through the roof excitement. It's adrenaline rush city, but the majority of the work is just not juicy enough to be made for TV. And I think that's when we find people embellishing stories and, creating hoaxes and lies and just trying to get people to watch. So in my opinion, the number one thing that's compelling people to behave this way, it's always money. It always comes down to money and fame. But mainly it's about the paycheck. There is just not enough funding for people to go out and be able to afford to not work full-time and go out and specifically run research with top tech equipment that's very expensive. So that's the first very obvious reason. I mean, obviously, in order to do what they want to do, they need to rack up some funding. They need to rack up funds, and how do they do that? By racking up views. But I think another one that's not really openly talked about enough yet is the fact that there's this secret agenda or this silent competition that's occurring where people would rather one-up each other and beat each other to the punchline than actually work together with the research. Everybody wants that shot at being the world famous person who finally gets the HD video or photo of Bigfoot, but no one has the time or resources to actually get out there and do it. So what you end up with is someone who is actually having Sasquatch encounters, but who isn't getting them documented well enough. So they're just creating hoaxes. And the hoaxes go viral and sustain the income for the person who wants to continue the research but can't quite afford it. Yes, this is really happening. And look, trust me, I could spill a lot of tea. I could have a whole Bigfoot tea party and spill a lot of tea. But I don't want to, because I understand that this person's livelihood would be on the line if I exposed them as a hoaxer. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. But I want you guys to know that that's what's going on in this world. This community is fiercely competitive and is driving people to do silly, ridiculous things in order to keep the funding going for the research. It's just like sheer desperation mixed and sprinkled with a little bit of insanity. And the problem is these Bigfoot encounters are addicting. It's incredibly exciting. It's a once-in-a-lifetime situation, and you want it to happen again. But for most people, it just never does. And I think that can be a little bit maddening. And I'm no psychologist, but I think in a way it's sort of an outlet for simulating these encounter experiences by people making these videos where there's like creepy music in the background and, you know, these ominous tones, and it's like a super blurry video with a red circle where it's just everything's so heavily pixelated and you can't tell what's what. I mean, it's like, where is this coming from? Why does this keep happening over and over? And you even see it in all the comments. Everybody's tired of seeing it. It's not just me. So psychologically speaking, the way I rationalize it is these people who are creating these videos or even hoaxes are truly just dying to have an encounter. That's what it is at the end of the day. They're just dying to have it happen to them again. Or maybe it happened to them and they never got it recorded, and so they want to recreate it and they want that attention that they would have got if they had got it recorded. At the end of the day, it's that craving that's driving people to do these absurd things, including stealing other people's work. Because I've had my work stolen more than once. And if it's happened to me more than once, I'm sure there are other researchers out there that it's happened to as well. But again, it just goes to show that this mentality of impatient frustration leads to pathetic desperation. And I have some sneaking suspicions that these types of videos and hoaxers and blob squatchers are actually pushed higher in the algorithms. I think there's this stigma behind Bigfoot that they want to perpetuate, and so they push it and they boost it. Because fear sells. Fear gets people to watch. Anyone thinking they're going to see something truly scary, like a real deal video of a monstrous Sasquatch, a giant, terrifying beast in the forest, that sells. That gets people watching. And let me be honest, it's a lot more exciting than the real research anyhow. If the real research videos were online, it's just hours and hours of driving up and down roads, seeing nothing and hearing nothing. And obviously no one really cares about that. No one wants to watch that. Someone would rather see a spooky video, right? But where do you draw the line? You want people to watch, you want people to be interested in Bigfoot, but you also shouldn't be clickbaiting people. And you also shouldn't just be posting spooky, ominous videos with no context, no information about the sighting, the encounter, the person who posted the video originally, where it came from. I mean, these things are what hurts and harms the research community, and it is detrimental for the validity of Sasquatch as a species. So it's just a really tough give-take where on one hand, yes, we want people interacting and we want people eager to learn about Bigfoot and curious. But on the other hand, we don't want to draw them in just to turn them off the minute they see the video and go, oh, this is just a load of baloney, which I think is just totally counterproductive to having your audience return to your page. I mean, you're not making yourself seem very reputable. And I totally get it. Not everyone that's posting about Bigfoot is a researcher, right? But a lot of these videos perpetuate a false narrative that Sasquatch are make-believe monsters, mythical beasts that are not real. But I've finally come to realize that it is a losing battle trying to get them to stop. They're not ever going to stop. Just like people are not ever going to stop clicking on it to see if maybe this is the one. Is this the one? This must be the video where we finally see Bigfoot come around the corner in a spooky backyard setting. It's never going to stop. They're never going to stop sharing those videos. We're never going to stop clicking on them. I'm guilty of it as well. So what I'd like to do is just remind everyone that if and when you do come across these videos and you kind of giggle and they're just stupid, or there's not enough context, or it's pretty hoaxy, it's giving off, hoaxer vibes, just remember that does not negate an entire species. Do not let someone's viral video distract you from the fact that Sasquatch are a living, breathing, real species. We're just going to have to learn to take it with a grain of salt and recognize that it is a part of this online Bigfoot community and there's no escaping it. But I sure hope that we can start moving forward with educating people on what we've learned thus far, because it's very scattered and it's very difficult to go from ground zero as a newbie who knows nothing about Bigfoot and learn in a linear fashion without getting really confused and very thrown off and taken on a rabbit hole wild goose chase with several theories that don't make sense and none of them connect, and there's no proof for any of them. The way I see it, the old narrative was Bigfoot is one singular interdimensional individual. For some reason, that is the biggest misconception. And that he is just this dude who maybe comes down from a spaceship and just disappears, and he likes to just mess with people. The old campfire story was that he was a giant, massive, hairy beast who was naturally blurry. He could just naturally make himself appear to be blurry. And the new narrative moving forward, okay, that we're going to start really running with. We're going to hit the ground running with the new, obviously more accurate narrative that Sasquatch are simply an elusive species that are shy and afraid of human beings. They've seen the destruction that human beings cause. They've seen that human beings hunt animals that Sasquatch live side by side with. They are very great at staying hidden, remaining still, and have seasonal coats that blend in with their surroundings. They are masters of camouflage, just like so many other species that walk amongst us on this planet. But because there are so few of them, plus they're so intelligent, and we don't have wildlife photographers with the know-how, the means, and the wherewithal to get the good footage, what we've unfortunately wound up with is a giant lack of crystal clear images that the world so desperately wants and needs. Any other animal on the planet, and you can do your wildlife photography solo, sure. But with Bigfoot, you're going to need a crew. Which is a great segue and brings us into the next episode. I hope you'll join me for the next Bigfoot Byte, where I talk about the crew. the team, the dream team, what it's going to take, what it's really going to take. In the future, I will be having plenty of guests, and I'll also be releasing more of my undercover interviews, but I do have to be very careful with some of the moves I make. So without saying too much, please just stay tuned, stick with me, and I promise we're going to learn a lot together throughout this whole process. See you on the next Bigfoot Byte.